The City Commission of Sanford, Florida says it has no confidence in its police chief. We're going to dig into all of the police failures of that investigation next with former NYPD Detective Eugene O'Neill.
It is so much corruption going on in the police department, and they is crooked as a barrel of fish hooks. And that's crooked.
That was part of a town hall meeting today in Sanford, Florida, led by the NAACP, giving residents the opportunity to talk about their experiences with the Sanford Police Department. Joining me now, University of Miami law professor Scott Sunby, professor of police studies and law at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Eugene O'Donnell, who is also a former NYPD police officer and prosecutor, and back with us, the Reverend Al Sharpton. Professor Sunby, I want to go to a line that's in the police chief's report, the so-called frequently asked questions answers, where he says, by Florida statute, law enforcement was prohibited from making an arrest based on the facts and circumstances they had at that time. Can you deconstruct that for us?
Yes. What I think the chief was trying to say, and perhaps misunderstood in how he said it, is that any arrest, before you can make it, you have to have probable cause that the person committed the crime. And so to say that you can't arrest someone without probable cause is correct. But what his statement suggests is that if a suspect says that they stood their ground and there's any evidence that might corroborate it, that you can't take a look at all the other facts and still find that probable cause exists. If I understand Chief Lee's interpretation correctly, it would allow anyone who is suspected of a homicide to say, hey, listen, I stood my ground, I thought I was in danger, and now you can't arrest me. And the probable cause determination is really looking at all of the facts, not only the suspect's statement, but also witnesses, 911 calls, and deciding off of all of that if probable cause exists. So only if there's no probable cause is it prohibited, but that's true in all types of crimes.
I mean, simply put, it sounds like the chief is trying to raise a higher level than probable cause. Professor O'Donnell? I've always wanted to say that. Professor O'Donnell.
Well, it says that the police are prohibited from making this arrest, and obviously in this case, there's a young person lying dead. He would be the best witness. The likelihood is if Trayvon was alive, there would be an arrest because you'd hear his account. All the more reason why the police should act with urgency and deliberation in trying to get every available fact. It's not like the CSI shows where someday you'll find out. They should be immediately asking this guy what happened and locking him into a statement and trying to get to the bottom of what happened. In the name of justice, it's the police, the highest duty the police have is to try to get the facts when the victim cannot speak for himself.
Reverend Al, your reaction to what we just heard from Mr. Bonaparte. It seems like every time we get into this, you feel like you're making a little bit of headway in the information, and then but you keep running into just as much frustration.
Which is why there's such frustration in the community. There's a lot of double talk. I mean, first of all, for the police
This thing's
chief,
all double talk. This frequently asked questions.
For the police chief to say, as stated, the bar is so high, he almost is saying, I have to have a conviction to make an arrest. There's a young man dead. You have 911 tapes. You don't even need the witnesses. What he said on the 911 tapes clearly does not lead towards self-defense. So you have enough probable cause there to proceed, saying, wait a minute, you proceeded, you were told not to proceed, you're not really a neighborhood watch guy anyway, and you killed somebody. If his story is the guy hit me and all that, tell it to the judge. We hear it every day in our community. That's what you do. He's not the judge and the jury. Now all of a sudden you give all of these excuses as to why Zimmerman has to have certain privileges that you don't give Trayvon Martin. That is unacceptable, and that is why this man needs to step aside and Zimmerman should be arrested.
Eugene O'Donnell, I want to draw on your experience on crime scenes responding as a police officer. You later worked as a prosecutor here here in New York City. The police reports, which we've been looking at today, have some fascinating things to me, and I really, you know, we got to wait for the autopsy report. But for example, Trayvon was found, I'm quoting the police report, laying face down on the ground. Now, that immediately raises the question of where is the exit wound? Where is the entrance wound? Is there an exit wound? We're being told that he was shot straight in the chest, but when the body is found laying face down, you got some immediate questions about exactly where this bullet was fired.
The police appeared to leave the playing field, if you read the reports.
Yeah.
They got into the business of first aid, which is obviously crucial. A life is in the balance. Yeah. But their job is also to find the truth. There's actually part of one of those police reports where the second officer specifically says, I did not talk to Mr. Zimmerman about this.
That's Timothy Smith. I'm going to quote him
as
here.
Though he avoided
he says, at no point did I question Zimmerman about the incident that had taken place. That's Timothy Smith, who was the guy working Zimmerman. There was another officer who was taking care of Trayvon. This one's working Zimmerman, doesn't ask him a question.
Police work 101 is, again, the person who could speak best about this is lying dead. You have another individual. You're going to try to lock him in before he has a chance to create some varnish on his story or to think about invoking his constitutional rights. That's fundamental police work, trying to get his account then and there. And it appears, if you read that report, the police had some inexplicable disinterest almost in trying to get to the bottom of this case.
Yeah, and Reverend Al, we've been asking questions about what about the cell phone? Trayvon had a cell phone. Yep. Would it be standard procedure in a situation like that? You see this kid's cell phone to press some buttons, see what was the most recent number dialed, things like that. They don't even know who this kid is. They're saying for over a day, this is a John Doe. If you have a John Doe with a cell phone, isn't that an awful lot of information?
If police work is anything, it's doing justice in a homicide case when somebody who cannot speak for himself is there. And there were plenty of facts available immediately that the whole idea of his involvement as an armed community watch person, who, having been told not to get involved, gets involved. There's lots of reasons to have probable cause to make an arrest. This law obviously is a ridiculous law. The lawmakers who made it should be held accountable for doing it.
But even as you read this law, as a law professor, you still see enough probable cause to clear that hurdle on this crime scene.
As Reverend Sharpton said, probable cause in our legal system is a relatively low standard. You can make an arrest. And by the way, this guy is accused of a homicide. There's a theoretical threat to the community, so there is an urgency to do that. That can always be, those charges can also be dropped later. It's not some gigantic standard. Is there probable cause in this case? When you take the facts that were immediately available, there's clearly probable cause in this case. Even though the law is a goofy law that creates some gray areas that shouldn't be there, the police should have acted courageously and made an arrest then and there.
And what is even more appalling is not only did they not make an arrest, they let the guy go with a gun.
Yeah.
With the murder weapon, you can go. And they start becoming his defense spokesman. In these documents that you read, Mr. Bonaparte, they start advocating on behalf of Zimmerman. I mean, it is outrageous. You have the police chief saying, this is what Zimmerman was facing. This is, in fact, what happened. How does he know that? He did not talk to people, and he had not talked to witnesses. There's no corroboration, but he states this as fact. He, in fact, became the spokesman for Mr. Zimmerman.
A gun like that, you want to take it over. You want to take ballistics tests on it. You want to figure out exactly what the range of fire was. How far away was this from the entrance wound? None of that's being done.
A full court press then and there to get the facts, to lock in the stories. The state's attorney should be involved in this. There's an urgency to do it. I don't understand why at this late date the city manager and other people are still trying to figure out what went wrong. Most of this, almost all of it appears to have gone wrong, and there should have been a lot quicker action taken to make it right.
Reverend Al, you're on a plane at dawn going down there tomorrow. What do you hope to accomplish?
We're going to keep a real national attention on this. We're going to have a very large rally tomorrow night. The family is going to be there. They just left. They did our show tonight. And many of our leaders around the country are coming in, including elected officials, but just ordinary people. We cannot let this go out of the public eye. The only way I feel that we can get the Justice Department and the state prosecutors to take it seriously is they know people are not going to be angry for a week and move on. I think that the Sanford police felt they could keep this inside of Sanford. When Attorney Crump got in touch with people like me and took it outside of it, it's to keep the attention there, and we're going to keep it there.
All right, we're going to hear from you tomorrow night again. Reverend Al Sharpton, Eugene O'Donnell, and Scott Sunby, thank you all very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Coming up, the groundswell of protest across the country for justice in the killing of Trayvon Martin. A march tonight in New York City, a march tomorrow with Reverend Sharpton in Sanford, Florida. Mark Thompson and Goldie Taylor will be my guests.